Hello and good evening. Well, all eyes will be trained at the United Nations headquarters in New York tomorrow when Prime Minister Narendra Modi will deliver his address at the General Assembly. The world will be watching to see what the leader of the world's largest democracy and fastest growing large economy has to say about global concerns ranging from terrorism to climate change. We'll get you a special report on that in Newsnight tonight. I'm Gautam Roy. And we'll also be talking about how the government is taking private banks along its drive to ensure fast and easy credit to retail customers during the upcoming festive season. But first, our headlines. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman holds a key meeting with private sector banks and financial institutions, says no liquidity problem in banks. The meeting was a tonic as demand and growth both are positive in the rural sector. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to address the United Nations General Assembly tomorrow, his second UNGA address as head of Indian government. The PM is likely to focus on several issues of national and global concern, ranging from terrorism to climate change. The Supreme Court insists on wrapping up of all arguments in the Ayodhya land dispute case by the 18th of October. Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi says not a single extra day will be given after the deadline set for conclusion of arguments. The situation is under control after heavy overnight rains in and around Pune in Maharashtra. At least 12 people have been killed due to downpour-related incidents in different parts of the state. NDRF has been deployed. Chief Minister Vadra has expressed sorrow over the loss of lives. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu expresses concern over repeated holding of elections in the country, lays stress on holding large-scale simultaneous polls throughout the nation. Enforcement Director tells the Delhi High Court it needs custodial interrogation of Robert Vadra in a money laundering case, says the Congress's first family son-in-law has a clear-cut connection in the chain of give and take in land dealings. Indian hockey team's former captain Sandeep Singh and Olympic medal winning wrestler Yogeshwar Dutt joined the BJP. Both say they felt inspired by Prime Minister Modi to join the party. And Indian shuttler Parvali Kashyap advances to the Korea Open men's singles quarterfinals after a 3-game triumph over Malaysia's Darren Liu in Incheon. Well, first up, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today held a meeting with the representatives of private sector banks and financial institutions. She later said that none of the bankers complained about any liquidity issues.
I have not heard liquidity as a problem from anybody. That is one thing which I want to take as a message. If anything, more liquidity reaching them, they see a demand waiting there and they wouldn't mind extending further facility. However, they have some reservations because of given RBI rules.
And the centre also announced that private sector banks will join outreach program in 400 districts for potential lending. The first round of bank outreach program will be held in 250 districts starting the 3rd of next month till the 7th. The FM also said that bankers have assessed that a slump in commercial vehicle sales is cyclical while sentiments are driving lower passenger vehicle sales. She also said that rural demand is still intact in those areas.
Many of the MFIs and microfinance units which have come here are in the deep country. They are in absolutely rural, densely populated rural areas, whether in the north or in the south or in the west. So almost near unanimity prevailed that in those areas there's still demand, there's still activity going on, and they're going on extending their loans.
Further, the government is sure that things are looking forward and upward and the consumption story is very much happening, adding that the demand will get back in the festive season that is just coming up. Now, cleanup in the banks has gathered pace in the cooperative banking sector. Two recent cases bring out the drive to get the state of affairs in this critical subsegment of the banking sector right in the country. Take a look.
The law is catching up with those who have been committing irregularities in cooperative banks in the country, looting the hard-earned money of the people. Government agencies and the Reserve Bank of India have been cracking down on such criminals. The latest in the string of actions involves the Maharashtra State Cooperative Bank. The Enforcement Directorate has initiated an inquiry into the bank's affairs where the alleged scamsters include NCP chief Sharad Pawar and his nephew come former Maharashtra Deputy CM Ajit Pawar. The ED filed a money laundering case against Pawar, his nephew Ajit Pawar and 70 others in the bank scam. The FIR was filed on the directions of the Bombay High Court. The Bombay High Court directions are based on charges of banking irregularities by a complainant. Complainant has charged Sharad Pawar and others of violating banking norms to issue loans and carrying out other business activities. The scam is alleged to be worth 25,000 crore rupees. It is alleged to have been perpetrated between the 1st of January 2007 to the 31st of March 2017. The allegation is that the inaction and bad decisions of banking officials caused substantial losses to the bank. Another bank caught on the wrong foot is the Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank or the PMC. Several depositors filed a collective FIR against the PMC's officials in Mumbai on Thursday. Former BJP MP Kirit Somaiya has also complained against the bank. Officials of the bank along with real estate firm HDIL are accused of siphoning off around 3,000 crore rupees of depositors' hard-earned money. Tuesday saw the RBI putting several restrictions on PMC for 6 months. The restrictions were justified on the basis of charges related to many regulatory lapses, particularly huge NPA underreporting. Restrictions included banning the bank from issuing fresh loans and capping withdrawals at 1,000 rupees per customer for 6 months. The withdrawal limit was later hiked to 10,000 rupees after a hue and cry by depositors, but RBI has clarified that restrictions do not mean cancellation of the PMC's banking license. Wednesday also saw RBI junking rumours on social media related to closure of 9 public sector banks. Finance Secretary Rajiv Kumar followed up RBI's clarification with his own social media message where he clearly said that people should not fall prey to mischievous social media posts as the government has in fact been strengthening PSU banks with reforms and infusion of capital so they can serve the people better. Clearly, the government as well as regulatory and probe agencies are taking all steps necessary to ensure banks work in the best manner possible to serve the people and add strength to the economy. News Night Desk, DD India.
And that brings up our In Focus tonight. Government sets banks to track banks on track to growth, and we have Dr. Charan Singh to talk about it. He is CEO and Director of eGrow. Welcome and good evening to you, sir. First, what do you make of the drive the government is now starting to ensure that easy credit is available to those who need it, and everybody is getting on board this particular drive, not just public sector banks, but even private banks?
Yes, I think the government needs to be congratulated on this initiative, which started about a month back. And I have written and said at different places, the government is listening. There was a slowdown or sort of slowdown in the country. We were all expecting 7+ growth, and the figures turned out to be lower, though the global economy was also slowing down. And then there was some reports from the auto industry, the housing, and the government swung into action. Series of initiatives were taken. Public sector banks were taken into confidence. Public sector banks met the finance minister, and in that sequence of things, and I think rightly so, the finance minister must have thought that the private sector banks are also doing good work and their share in total banking industry is improving, so it's good to meet them. Also, the finance minister got this time the NBFCs and some mutual funds. That is the complete financial sector the finance ministry is trying to address. In this initiative, it's obvious that though there were complaints initially that NBFCs and some sectors of the economy were facing liquidity crunch and there was not enough availability of credit, the government has made sure by taking all these sections and all these banking institutions into account talking to them, listening to them, analyzing their complaints, and providing them solutions. So right now, the finance minister herself said today that though she has been listening to the private sector banks, NBFCs, as well as the mutual funds, she didn't even hear once the word liquidity crunch. So that aspect has been taken care. The other thing which was being said was that there is a slump in the car sales because there is lack of consumption demand. And the finance minister has swung into action on that front also, and asked the public sector banks to hold Shamayana meetings where loans will be given to worthy customers and all types of loans would be available. And the finance minister has encouraged that for one existing account holder she would like 5 more to get the loans. And so before the festival season starts, this effort is being made. That will bring in financial power into the hands of the people, the purchasing power, and therefore the demand will start rising. So both industry, the financial sector, and the consumer will benefit from the initiatives. I think that is a very well thought out strategy, and it's starting to show results.
And the concern over passing on of the rate cuts to customers, particularly retail customers, do you feel that too is an issue which will be taken care of now in this particular phase, because the festive season is going to be on, and banks will reach out to customers even by lowering rates, although there is still that requirement perhaps, and that will come into effect maybe next year, of a new benchmark which will be closer to the repo rate?
Well, I really appreciate this concept of the interest rates of the commercial banks being linked to the external benchmark. Actually, if you look at the history of it, for a very long time, the governor of the central bank have been saying, different governors have been saying that the transmission mechanism gets stuck because at the very outset, the Reserve Bank keeps reducing the repo rate and it doesn't get reflected into the lending rate by the commercial banks. Various things were experimented, and now the current governor has come out with an excellent thought, and of course there's a report which goes into it's not a knee-jerk, it's a well thought out strategy of linking it to external benchmarks. Now when they're going to link it to external benchmarks, they've given various options, there are choices there. Most of the banks are going to link it to the repo rate, which is overnight rate, and that repo rate keeps getting reduced consistently, and that's probably going to start getting reflected into the banking advances now. One complaint, and I had heard this from some of the automobile sector, saying that they can't sell their cars because the interest rates are very high. And now, and so is the story for the housing sector. And now with the external benchmarking, it's expected that these rates will come down, the existing rates will come down by 15 to 20 basis points. And if the Reserve Bank decides to lower the repo rate again on October 4th, the day they are going to announce the next monetary policy, it's going to come down further. So during this festival season, if the rate of interest is coming down, this is obviously going to benefit demand, and I would say that the car and the housing sector is obviously going to benefit because EMIs are going to come down. So I'm really happy. I think it's a very well thought of strategy, and the timing is perfect.
Great. Just stay with us, sir, because we have another guest joining us, Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee. In fact, I'm being told that we will take a little more time with Shubhamoy at the moment. But if I could ask you a little bit more about this in terms of how the finance minister said that in retail there's no problem. She said if there is any problem, there's a problem in the wholesale lending sector. Do you feel that there is really a problem there?
My own feeling is this retail and the bulk or the wholesale lending, they are related. Now the retail, of course, she's given a push because we are going to have 400 districts where there's going to be the Shamayana sort of banking, and therefore many people will come and many loans will be given. All types of loans which people would expect to be given would be given. As far as the wholesale lending is concerned, it's obvious that the big amount, big ticket money there is a time when decisions have to be taken, large investment has to be made, and now that the environment is changing in the economy, the sentiments are picking up, the corporate tax rate has come down, it is obvious that there's going to be so much happening at that front, but that could get a little delayed. The projects and the big projects which would seek financing would probably be tabled in corporate houses, discussed, and probably brought to the banks for financing. So she's right if she has made that statement, and she must have the data. Logically speaking, that sounds correct. And once the rates are down, once the corporate tax rates are also down and the repo rates are down and the interest rate is going to be down, it is obvious that investment will start taking place, and investment decisions always take time before they come to the bank.
Okay. Shubhamoy Bhattacharya is now with us. Welcome, Shubhamoy. Good evening to you. What do you make of the kind of things that Nirmala Sitharaman had to say after meeting representatives of private sector banks as well as institutions? A fairly rosy picture has emerged, and it seems that we're on the brink of something of a takeoff for the economy in terms of economic activity, especially where credit and liquidity are concerned.
Yeah, you know, Gautam, the way the finance minister's role is in any mature country's economy, one is that the person has to, of course, put the policies forward. The other is that the policies have to be communicated, you know, because there's a lot of issues regarding communication, and that is a very vital part of a finance minister's role in economy. What the finance minister today was doing was exactly that.
Yes.
You know, sort of telling that, you know, this is the direction that we are moving, and this is a direction that's going to be staying for quite some time. Now, obviously, if people want one-to-one correlation, that, you know, today the finance minister said that does it seem that tomorrow morning things would start changing? No, it won't. It will take time. But what it does is it tells the banks, just as it has told the public sector banks, whom she met some time earlier, that which is the direction the government wants them to take. If they are taking investment decisions, then how, for instance, the corporate tax rates fit in, how do the other measures that have been taken, for instance, for the export sectors fit in, and therefore what it portends for the third quarter. The second quarter is already upon us. It's the third quarter and the fourth quarter, because this is a very difficult situation through which the world economy is moving, and within that, what is India trying to push in terms of reclaiming the higher growth rate?
Right. And Dr. Chara Singh, what do you have to say to those people who still feel that you know, the problem, as Nirmala Sitharaman said herself, the problem is not liquidity, the problem is the basic issue of demand. The problem perhaps could also be that people are expecting that they will get loans at much better terms than they're being offered right now.
So I agree with her, and for a long time everybody had been saying that there is a consumption side story, and whom to sell cars, there are nobody coming to pick up the cars, whom to sell trucks, there are no demand for trucks, and that sort of a story was being narrated. Now once we have in the end of September, early October, and the festival season which lifts the sentiments, once we have the Shamiana type of banking where the interest rates are low and availability of money is easy, it is obvious that demand is going to get created and consumption will increase. Once this cycle starts at that large scale in 400 districts, they are planning it, they've requested the banks. The public sector banks had been requested earlier today. The other segments of the financial sector, private sector banks and DFCs and mutual funds have been spoken to. I think the whole environment is changing, the sentiments are changing, the stock market is changed in the last 1 week. This new environment, the new paradigm that has come, I think is very, very appropriate for the growth as well as for demand to pick up. Once the demand picks up, all that stories that we were reading that the automobile sector is only working 3 days a week or they're working just 2.5 days a week, all that is going to be the past. Once demand spurs up, obviously the supply will have to meet the demand, and therefore I think the economy moves into a spiral which is higher. I totally agree with the speaker here earlier. This had a lot to do with speaking and communicating. As you would have noticed, about 15 days back, the sentiments in the economy were really low. If you look today, the sentiments are high, and everybody is saying, okay, we are back on the rail and we are going to grow faster. And I think this got also reflected in the Prime Minister's speech in New York when he was meeting different CEOs, that look, this is the corporate tax rate now, which is amongst the lowest in the area, and you are welcome to come and invest. I think that is the strategy which has paid off and raised the sentiments once for all for the larger segment of the society. So given this rich sentiments, given the animal spirits are getting unleashed, getting the confidence that the government listens and provides practical solutions, I think both sides, the demand and supply, is going to pick up. And that is what I'm seeing in or getting reflected in the stock market, the way I'm seeing the behavior there.
Yes, and the FM also mentioned the services sector as well, which is primed for making good use of this Shamiana banking as well, and at the same time especially MSMEs and even microfinancing mudra loans as well. But Shubhamoy, the other thing that is happening in the country is the cleanup of the banking sector, which is also taking place in the cooperative banking subsector, if you can call it that. We've seen two recent cases, one of PMC and the other in Maharashtra State Cooperative Bank, where the likes of Sharad Pawar are now under the scanner, and they might be questioned. Pawar himself has said that he'll go to the ED office tomorrow itself to answer all the questions that they might want to ask. Do you feel that that is also something that will have a positive impact in the long run as far as the banking sector and economic activity in general in the country is concerned?
Interesting, Gautam. In fact, this afternoon we were discussing about this at a particular session, and one of the things about this cooperative banks, and let me put it right up front, is this is the weakest link in the Indian banking sector. The government of India and the RBI, and especially the RBI, has for years been saying that the urban cooperative banks are a very major problems for the Indian financial stability. The regional rural banks, actually the ones which actually lend to the agriculture, to the farmers, they have been cleaned up, and all the regional rural banks have been merged into 48 rural banks, and they are all under the parentage of one or the other scheduled commercial banks. It has been one of the big reforms in the Indian banking sector. As a result, today farmers and others can have the option of either going to a scheduled commercial bank or they go to the regional rural banks. Their interests are not affected. The problem that comes along is that the urban cooperative banks, and this is a huge problem area because these banks are not registered with RBI. The RBI doesn't start them. They start with the Register of Cooperative Societies, which doesn't monitor them. And most of these banks are conduits for political parties for funding.
Okay.
And all of these banks, in fact, none of these banks, if you look at the founders, if you look at their management, you'd find that they are away from any political system. So what happens is that typically during election times, they become hyperactive. During demonetization, the RBI had to make a order, had to issue an order saying that cooperative banks will not be allowed to receive refunded cash because their reputation was so bad. So urban cooperative banks, it's not surprising that they are in trouble. In fact, they have been in the middle of each of India's financial scams. Every one of them, the Madhepura Mercantile Bank, the Punjab Bank, all of these banks, and when they are merged, the problem is that they can't be liquidated because they are under state governments. So they are merged, and that merger costs money for all of us, the taxpayers.
Right.
We have to pay for the cost of cleaning up these balance sheets, and we don't need them because the poor people don't go to these banks. It is people who are looking for excess returns who go there, and they are conduits for speculative, I use speculative in the wrong way. The way in which it is not supposed to be done, it is that which these urban cooperative banks become the founders of. In fact, strictly speaking, these banks are not really banks. They are actually cooperative societies.
Okay.
And they are not the real cooperative societies that the poor need. So, there is a large reason to clean up these cooperative societies, and even if this one, this
So, large reason, but Dr. Charan Singh, if you can tell us how does one go about, cleaning up cooperative banks? Does it mean that there should be a slew of cases just like the ones that we are seeing now in the case of both these cooperative banks?
Look, I would not condemn the cooperative banks so drastically the way the previous speaker has been doing. They are serving a purpose. There are more than 1 lakh of cooperative banks, urban and rural. And when Dr. Reddy was the governor of the RBI, he came out with a tripartite agreement where the cooperative bank management, the state government under which they are registered under the Cooperative Act, and the Reserve Bank signed an agreement. And now the Reserve Bank, the tough regulator and the prudent regulator that it is, has swung into action.
Yes.
One thing
which is why it's been able to place restrictions.
Need to appreciate is how, one thing we all need to appreciate and really congratulate the Reserve Bank, how in such a diverse country with such different type of banking structures and financial institutions, how alert the Reserve Bank is, that they spot something and they swung into action within no time. This is something which is unbelievable.
Yes, but in the present case, in the PCB's case, it was the bank that went to the Reserve Bank.
Now, and please also remember one thing, that out of more than 1 lakh cooperative banks, urban and states, 1 or 2 banks have failed. And the Reserve Bank has swung into action quickly and saved the depositors. So I think, given the commercial banking structure, given the Jan Dhan Yojana, the cooperative banks are also playing an important role, at least in mobilizing resources wherever they are, especially the urban cooperative banks. So I would not condemn them outright. Now the second thing is, the Reserve Bank, the central bank of our country, the regulatory and supervisory authority has to be empowered further. Wherever they detect something which is suspicious, the way they did it and the way they acted in such a short time, that needs to be really celebrated. But yes, as the commercial banks have been really supervised, closely inspected and monitored, the cooperative banks also probably need to be, the regulation, supervision, monitoring and inspection of the cooperative banks may also need to be strengthened further. But I am really happy that, and we are all reading in the newspaper, one transaction and the trigger, and the central bank swings into action. How alert it must be. So the cleaning has to be always there. Money is money, it's very fungible, and all across the world, banking system is vulnerable because of this fact that money is so fungible. And the regulator and the supervisor has to be strengthened, and that's exactly what is going on in our country. So I would be happy but not too worried.
Okay. Shubhamoy, Dr. Charan Singh is prescribing an approach which does not tar all the all these banks, the corporate sector banks with the same brush, but at the same time saying that perhaps the RBI could be empowered further so that it can better regulate, keep an eye on their activities. Do you think that is a prescription that is possible given the kind of arrangements that we have for the moment in terms of the working of these banks?
Let's be very clear. The farmers in India are mostly served by the regional rural banks and by the scheduled commercial banks. That sector has been cleaned up. The primary agricultural credit societies, the district agricultural credit societies led by the state cooperative societies all come under NABARD. Those have a particular structure which is largely in consonance with what RBI wants. We should not conflate their problems with this. The urban cooperative banks is a big problem, and we have got to recognize that the RBI's every financial stability report every year has pointed it out that this is a weak link in India's financial structure, and for clear reasons. In fact, RBI, despite being a conservative organization, has said that their one problem is that these are politically funded animals, and there's a problem there. Let me take the case of this bank. This bank has a net worth of about 1200 crores.
You talk about PCB or no, you talk about Maharashtra.
This PCB.
PCB.
This one had a 1200 crore net worth. It lent 2500 crore to one entity which was in insolvency. What sort of banking regulation does one talking about, except to say that there was a, I feel that there was a fraud. There is a problem here, no RBI regulation, and the problem that comes along is because these banks do not report to RBI. They need to be brought on RBI. Let us take an example of what happened with the housing finance companies. RBI realized the problem and promptly brought those institutions under RBI's control, very rightly, because millions of householders who have investors who have invested in these companies need their money to be protected, and RBI says, if I have got to protect it, I need to know what is happening in those balance sheets. So these urban cooperative banks need to be brought under RBI. They cannot stay under registrar of cooperative societies of respective states. Those registrars,
so who can do which authority can do that?
So the states need to cede their authority and give it to the central government, that RBI will be the authority to monitor those banks only, nobody else. Just as it has been done for the regional rural banks, it should be done the same for the urban cooperative banks.
Do you see that happening, Dr. Charan Singh? The state ceding authority to the center as far as these banks are concerned?
Once again I differ, because there is a very strong urban cooperative bank department in the Reserve Bank, no doubt about it, and urban cooperative banks are special, there is no doubt about that also, and the Reserve Bank is all empowered and has swung into action. The weakest link in the financial sector, not only in India, across the world, are shadow banks, or in our country, the NBFCs. And those NBFCs, also the Reserve Bank has an NBFC department giving licenses to the new NBFCs to some extent, not to the rigorous extent of the commercial bank. The Reserve Bank has started looking into the NBFCs. So on one hand, I am very clear, the central bank, the regulator and the supervisor, super alert, one of the best in the world, I would rather say the best in the world, swings into action. As far as these things are concerned, one bank out of hundreds of cooperative banks, one NBFC, the housing sector which was being referred to, out of 80 odd, means that doesn't mean that the whole system is rotten. It needs to be regulated, it needs to be supervised, and we all learn as we go by. Even in the American system where everything is electronically monitored and the systems are so robust, you saw what happened in 2008. We all learn. So we are learning, and in this case rather I am very happy, and I think as a depositor or as a citizen I would be so happy that I have a regulator, despite whatever be the governance structure of the cooperative banks, both the banks that are playing out in the news these days, despite the governance structure, the central authority of supervising and regulating the bank is courageous, has the system, has the alertness, has the red flags, and swings into action within no time. This is something superb.
And now I sense
the second component, the weak component.
I sense that Dr. Charan Singh is saying that there should be oversight, and there is oversight to a certain extent. Perhaps there could be more, but it shouldn't be to the extent that it becomes overbearing, because then that also gets in the way of just doing everyday business.
No, but these banks, there is no question of overbearing. These banks are simply without any major oversight. NBFCs over the years have been brought, and as far as the asset liability is concerned, almost at par with the banks. I don't see that happening with urban cooperative banks. And every financial scam in India, there was one or the other urban cooperative bank in the middle of it, the Madhepura Mercantile Bank. Going back further, you will have several other names. It is not coincidence that the urban cooperative banks always are in the middle of some amount of, I would say, use a strong word, money laundering that comes along. And that is because RBI does not get the authority. I think that's a point, both I agree with Dr. Charan Singh, absolutely, that we need only RBI to be able to monitor these banks. These banks should not be under the register of cooperative societies of the states.
Okay.
If they want to be, they can be cooperative societies, but they should not get the nomenclature of banks. If they have to be banks, they should only be with RBI's administrative total jurisdiction.
Well, what is clear from the discussion we've had this evening as far as these banks, the cooperative banks are concerned, especially the urban ones, is that perhaps a longer, harder look is required as to the way, not just the way they function, but also the way that they are monitored or regulated or what have you, something that will ensure that things such as these that are emerging now in the case of these two banks, these two cooperative, and both are urban, they do not recur. Thank you for joining us this evening, Dr. Charan Singh, as well as Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee. Okay, now we're moving on and taking you across to good old Big Apple. That's right, to New York, as the 74th session of the UN General Assembly is underway in New York. Several world leaders have already spoken up to highlight the issues that matter most to their countries. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing the annual UN General Assembly session tomorrow itself. The PM is likely to highlight his government's key initiatives towards poverty alleviation, affordable healthcare services to all, and steps taken to combat two global scourges, terrorism and climate change.
World leaders have gathered at the United Nations headquarters in New York City for the 74th session of the UN General Assembly. All eyes are on the general debate at the UN headquarters, where world leaders highlight the issues that matter most to their countries. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to address the annual high-level UN General Assembly on 27 September. PM Modi's speech at the UNGA comes at a time when India is ready to play a larger role on the world stage. India has made significant improvements in almost all international rankings and indices at various global platforms. India has forcefully raised the issue of terrorism and said no country in the world today was safe from it. India, a victim of cross-border terrorism, has called for efforts to eliminate terrorism in all its forms. India has maintained that a terrorist attack anywhere in the world should be considered as terrorism, not good or bad terrorism.
आतंकवाद का जो मोड है वो बदल रहा है। पहले था कि ह्यूमन बीइंग्स क्रॉस करते थे बॉर्डर या अब आजकल जो इंटरनेट और कनेक्टिविटी हो गई है उसमें आतंकवाद का डेफिनेशन ही बदल गया है। इंटरनेट को ये टेररिस्ट नैरेटिव से अलग करवाएं और ये एक मुद्दा है जो हम जिसको आगे बढ़ाएंगे क्योंकि ये दुनिया में आज उभरता हुआ मुद्दा है।
Due to growing prominence of India on the world stage, India has also called for an early reform of the UN Security Council and expansion of its permanent and non-permanent members. India has said that the 21st century had its own set of challenges and the United Nations needs to reflect contemporary realities.
India's place in the world is very different from what it was before. Even from 5 years ago, things have changed. There is a greater desire for the world and a large number of countries to engage with us more intensely. Reformed multilateralism is a persistent theme in India's approach towards international affairs.
Besides efforts for poverty alleviation, affordable healthcare services to all, quality education could be another area of focus of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address at UNGA. In the face of worsening climate change, Prime Minister may also draw attention of world leaders towards some of the key initiatives of government towards combating climate change, including campaigns against single-use plastic, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, Ujala Scheme, Saubhagya Scheme, Zero Effect, Zero Defect policy, among others. Prime Minister may also point out countries' remarkable progress in moving towards achieving sustainable development goals. In his previous address at the UNGA in 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had received standing ovation from world leaders after he introduced them the benefits of yoga.
योग हमारी पुरातन पारंपरिक अमूल्य देन है। योग मन व शरीर, विचार व कर्म, संयम व उपलब्धि की एकात्मता का तथा मानव व प्रकृति के बीच सामंजस्य का मूर्त रूप है।
PM Narendra Modi, who is leading efforts to scrap single-use plastics by 2022, is set to launch the campaign on 2nd October, the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. With inputs from Munmun Bhattacharya, Bureau Report, DD News.
And continuing with his engagements with world leaders, Prime Minister Modi held bilateral level talks with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani on the sidelines of the UNGA in New York just a short while ago. And back home, let's get you some more updates from in and around the country in our regional roundup.
Wrestling Olympic medalist Yogeshwar Dutt and former Indian hockey captain Sandeep Singh joined the Bharatiya Janata Party. Dutt, an Indian wrestler from Haryana, said that he has long been impressed with the policies of Prime Minister Modi. The Election Commission of India announces by-elections for 2 Rajya Sabha seats, one each from UP and Bihar, to be held on October 16th. The seats have been vacated after the deaths of former Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and senior Supreme Court advocate Ram Jethmalani. The Shahjahanpur law student who has accused Chinmay Anand of rape has been arrested in an extortion case against her. The woman has been sent to 14-day judicial custody. CBI makes first arrest in Narda sting case, arrests senior IPS officer SMH Mirza in Narda tape scandal, the first apprehension in the case since the footage surfaced in 2016. CBI carries out searches at the residence of former Bengaluru Police Commissioner Alok Kumar in connection with alleged phone tapping of politicians and bureaucrats during the tenure of Congress-JDS government headed by H.D. Kumarasamy. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath says that his government's One District, One Product scheme will play an important role in turning the state into a $1 trillion economy by 2024.
Now, the Enforcement Directorate has told the Delhi High Court that it wanted custodial interrogation of Robert Vadra because the money chain in a case of money laundering was allegedly directly linked to him. Vadra, who's Congress Chief Sonia Gandhi's son-in-law, was not cooperating with the investigation in the case. That's what the agency has told the court. Robert Vadra is facing allegations of money laundering in the purchase of a London-based property at 12 Branston Square, estimated at over 17 crore rupees. The case is being probed under the provisions of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The court was hearing the ED's plea challenging the anticipatory bail granted to Vadra by a trial court. The probe agency sought the cancellation of Vadra's anticipatory bail on the ground that it required his custody as he was not cooperating in the investigation. Now, while granting anticipatory bail to Vadra, the trial court had directed him not to leave the country without prior permission and also to join the probe as and when called by the investigating officer. After hearing the brief arguments, the court listed the matter for final arguments on the 5th of November. Also hearing the Ayodhya title dispute case on a day-to-day basis, the Constitutional Bench of the Supreme Court reminded the parties today to finish their respective arguments by the 18th of October, adding that they will not get any extension any further. Chief Justice of India Ranjan Gogoi added that even if arguments are over by the 18th, it will be miraculous if judgment is delivered in 4 weeks' time thereafter.
In the Ayodhya title dispute case, the Supreme Court has made it absolutely clear that there will be no extra day available to the parties to complete their arguments. A constitution bench reiterated the importance of completing arguments by October 18th. At the outset, the bench asked both Hindu and Muslim parties to specify the time frame for completing the arguments. Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi said that there will not be any extra day after October 18th. He added that it will be miraculous if the bench delivers the judgment in 4 weeks in the matter. Justice Gogoi also reminded the lawyers that he is set to retire on November 17th. The bench, also comprising Justices S.A. Bobde, D.Y. Chandrachud, Ashok Bhushan and S. Abdul Nazir, said that it will require at least 4 weeks to write the judgment. The court asked the Muslim parties to wrap up their arguments on the ASI report. It said there are holidays in October and only one advocate of the 4 Hindu parties will be allowed to give rejoinder arguments. Many organizations and the UP state government have welcomed the remarks.
अदालत तय कर ले कि अब हमें फैसला करना ही है, आपको अपनी बात रखनी चाहिए तो रखिए। तो अब लगभग हमारे हिसाब से सुनवाई पूरी मुकम्मल हो चुकी है। थोड़ी बहुत जो सुनवाई बची है वो जो कोर्ट ने टाइम निर्धारित किया 18 अक्टूबर तक, उसमें पूरी हो जाएगी।
पहली बार न्यायपालिका में श्री रंजन गोगोई की अध्यक्षता में जो बेंच का गठन हुआ है, अथक परिश्रम करके और निर्णायक स्थिति में पहुंचने वाले हैं। पूरा राष्ट्र उनके साथ में है, पूरे देशवासी उनके साथ में है।
The Muslim parties on Thursday took a U-turn on questioning the authorship of 2003 report of the Archaeological Survey of India and apologized to the apex court for wasting its time. They added that they do not wish to question the authorship of the summary of the ASI report. On Wednesday, the Muslim parties had questioned the ASI report, saying every chapter is attributed to an author, but the summary has not been attributed to anyone. The apex court has been hearing the matter on a day-to-day basis. Thursday was the 32nd day of arguments in the case. With inputs from Vikas Sarthi in New Delhi, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
President Ramnath Kovind has said that Gandhian values are relevant to address a range of issues the world faces today, such as terrorism, violence, corruption, discrimination as well as climate change. Inaugurating a seminar on spirituality for human and social development to mark the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, the President said that Gandhi had understood very well that the emphasis on spiritual values is essential for the establishment of peace and non-violence in the world.
President Ramnath Kovind on Thursday inaugurated the National Seminar on Spirituality for Human and Social Development to mark the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. The seminar was organized by Ahimsa Vishwa Bharati at Dr. Ambedkar International Center in New Delhi. The President said the global community will benefit by following the path of peace and non-violence shown by Gandhi ji.
महात्मा गांधी का अहिंसा दर्शन पूरे विश्व के लिए उपयोगी है। साथ ही ये विश्व स्तर पर गांधी जी के लिए हम सबके और पूरी मानवता के गहरे सम्मान का एक प्रमाण भी। मुझे ये देखकर प्रसन्नता होती है कि गांधी जी के आदर्शों की प्रासंगिकता के लिए लोग सचेत भी हैं, सक्रिय भी हैं और वो प्रासंगिकता जो 150 वर्ष पहले थी वो प्रासंगिकता आज भी बनी हुई है। मुझे विश्वास है कि उन मूल्यों के प्रति सजगता और कर्मठता हमारे देश को तथा पूरे विश्व को बेहतर बनाएगी।
Addressing the conference, Union Social Justice and Empowerment Minister Thawarchand Gehlot said that on the occasion of the 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, the country is carrying forward Gandhiji's views on cleanliness and the nation is being freed of the menace of open defecation.
जब बापू की 150वीं जयंती मनाएंगे तो हम उन्हें न केवल खुले में शौच से मुक्त भारत समर्पित करेंगे, जबकि उस दिन पूरे देश में भारत के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के आह्वान पर प्लास्टिक के खिलाफ एक नए जन आंदोलन की नींव रखेंगे।
During the Spirituality for Human and Social Development seminar, deliberations took place on peace and non-violence means. With inputs from Rishi Kumar, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Torrential rains in and around Pune, especially overnight, have taken a heavy toll in the area. 12 lives have been claimed. Damage to property has also been extensive. NDRF teams have had to be pressed into service to get the situation under control.
12 people have been killed in separate incidents after heavy rainfall led to flooding in several areas of Pune. 5 people, including a 9-year-old boy, were killed in incidents of wall collapse in the flooded Anneshwar area. Thousands of people have been rescued and shifted to safer places following heavy rains that battered Pune district.
बाढ़ के पानी के कारण वाल गिरने के कारण 10 से 12 मकान का काफ़ी नुकसान हुआ था। तो उसमें अभी तक की जो खबर है कुछ 4 लोगों की डेथ हुई थी। स्थानीय लोगों द्वारा निकाल के अस्पताल भेज दिया था। हम आने के बाद कोई अननोन व्यक्ति के लिए सर्च कर रहे हैं पूरा, अभी हमारा वो काम से अभी चल रहा है।
2 people are reported missing in Purandar. Normal life has been badly affected due to heavy rains. All the assistance is being provided in the affected areas. Vehicles have been damaged as a result of trees and poles falling, and houses have also been submerged.
मेरे घर में इतना मेरे कंबर तक गिला था। पहला मेरा पिताजी अंदर फंस गए थे, उनको बाहर लड़कों ने 4 लोगों ने बाहर निकाला, बाहर से दरवाजा बंद था, निकाला बाहर, वो सही तरह से बाहर आ गए। इतना जोर सा बाढ़ आ गए नहीं पीछे से, फिर अंदर सब गीला गीला हो गया। अभी मैं अकेला हूँ, मैं बाहर सब निकल रहा हूँ।
आया 12 साढ़े 12 बजे तक बारिश आया बहुत सारा, और उसके बाद में अचानक से पानी आ गया। मेरी सास पैर से बहुत दुखता है, उसका अपंग है, पूरा घर भर गया। उनको हमने कैसे तो भी शिफ्ट कर दिया। फ्रिज और कपाट वो सब हमारा घर का गया, खाने का सब सामान भरा था, वो किराना माल भी सब कुछ गया, हमारा कुछ नहीं बचा। अभी
रात को इतना बारिश आ गया था, जो ऊपर के इलाके जो बांध है जो फूट गया, फूटने की वजह से इतना बाढ़ बढ़ गया कि इस इलाके में इतना पानी अंदर घुस गया, जो यहाँ कभी किसने सोचा नहीं था कि इतना बाढ़ आ जाएगा। ये तो नाला है, नदी नहीं है, कितना बाढ़ अंदर घुस गया कि पूरे इलाके में इतना पानी घुसने के बाद जो लोगों का जो घर में मुसीबत बढ़ गई, जो लोगों को बाहर आना पड़ा।
3 teams of the NDRF are engaged in relief and rescue work. Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis condoled the loss of lives in the incidents. He said, I quote, "My deepest condolences to the families. We are providing all the possible assistance needed." The state disaster management officials and the control room are in continuous touch with the Pune collector and the Pune Municipal Corporation. 2 NDRF teams are deployed in Pune and 2 in Baramati. 1 more NDRF team is on its way to Baramati. The state government is also closely monitoring the dam discharge, unquote. The officials said Thursday saw a reduction and the halt in the rains, but some low-lying areas and houses are still submerged. With more release of water scheduled from the Khadakwasla Dam, the administration is evacuating people from low-lying areas and utmost vigil is being maintained for the safety of the people. With inputs from Yogesh Sheetal, News 9 Desk, DD India.
The Government of India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's initiative Ayushman Bharat has proven to be a boon for the underprivileged falling sick in the country. People who can't afford to pay lump sum amounts at corporate hospitals are now getting world-class treatment at the same hospitals with governmental assistance. Let's see how a single child of a poor family got a new life under Ayushman Bharat.
He is merely 9 years old, but unfortunately bedridden. Jaideep lost his father 7 months ago. Now, his mother is the only bread earner in the family. She works as a domestic help. While Jaideep was already going through all this, life took another turn. 2 months ago, his family came to know about a hole in his heart. And it was at this time that Ayushman Bharat came to his rescue. The smile on Jaideep's mother's face tells us all.
My husband is no more. We were told to visit civil hospital for my son's treatment. We were made to visit many hospitals. Then we came to this hospital. Here they have good facilities. I thank government for this, otherwise I was not in a position to pay for his treatment. My son has undergone 4 successful surgeries.
Jaideep underwent treatment at Ahmedabad's Rajasthan Hospital thanks to the Ayushman card, which made treatment accessible and affordable for all. In this hospital alone, around 5,000 patients have been treated so far under the Ayushman Bharat scheme.
I thank Prime Minister for this noble initiative. The Ayushman Bharat scheme is really good. Many poor people are now availing benefits of this scheme. People who couldn't even imagine getting better are now getting better.
Under the scheme, the government provides an annual health cover of 5 lakh rupees to the poor. With inputs from Lakshman Rajput and Ankit Singh, DD News, Ahmedabad.
International news now, and the White House claims the intelligence whistleblower's complaint about President Donald Trump's efforts to seek dirt from Ukraine on former Vice President Joe Biden's son shows nothing improper. Trump has said he's done nothing wrong, even as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced a formal impeachment inquiry.
Politics in America have taken a new turn, with the Democrats, who enjoy a majority in the House of Representatives with 235 out of 435 members, launching impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump. On Tuesday, the House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the opening of a formal impeachment inquiry, which Donald Trump has termed as witch hunt garbage. The allegation against Trump is that he asked Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to launch a corruption investigation against Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Joe Biden is Democratic Party presidential candidate for the 2020 election and is considered as a potential rival to Trump when he seeks re-election next year.
I found the allegations deeply disturbing. I also found them very credible. I can understand why the Inspector General found them credible, even without the benefit yet of the Inspector General's full analysis.
Trump, on his part, has claimed that the issue will only increase his chances of re-election in 2020. He has even insisted that Joe Biden answer some important questions on the matter.
I fully support transparency on the so-called whistleblower information, even though it was supposedly second-hand information, which is sort of interesting. And other things have come out about the whistleblower that are also maybe even more interesting. But also insist on transparency from Joe Biden and his son Hunter on the millions of dollars that have been quickly and easily taken out of Ukraine and China. Millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars taken out very rapidly while he was vice president. And I think they should have transparency for that.
The charges against Trump could raise clouds of uncertainty over the 2020 polls. Trump is the third US president after Bill Clinton and Andrew Johnson, against whom impeachment proceedings have been initiated. However, as earlier, there is almost no danger to his presidency. In addition to the process itself being extremely cumbersome, there is almost no chance of Trump being convicted, as in the Senate, the Republican Party enjoys a majority, 53 of 100 members. Newsnight Desk, DD News.
So close to a re-election. That's all we have for the moment. For all the latest, stay with DD India.